Welcome to 10X Live, the show where we're revolutionizing business, one strategy at a time. At 10X Solutions, we have a bold vision to democratize business excellence. We believe every organization deserves the tools to thrive. Our secret sauce, the perfect blend of cutting-edge AI, the proven power of organizational health, and growth management. We assembled genius teams equipped with advanced analytics to supercharge decision-making and skyrocket efficiency. From AI-augmented strategy sessions that spark creativity to precise planning powered by human ingenuity, we're your catalyst for sustainable growth. We keep it real, we keep it honest, and we keep you ahead of the curve. Join us for the 10X revolution. We're not just adapting to change, we're leading it. Let's map out a future where your business doesn't just survive, it thrives. This is 10X Live. Let's transform business together.
Well, hello, everyone. We are super excited to have you here. Welcome back to 10X Live. We're here with Jay Scott, and he has kindly allowed me to co-host with him today. I'm Denise Nowell. And so Jay, how was your weekend? We had a long weekend to get a little bit of downtime.
I did, yeah. So I had my mom came and visited, so that was a lot of fun. Good. And then so I live in Fresno, California, which is about an hour from 3 different national parks. So there's Yosemite, and then Sequoia National Park and Kings Canyon as well. So we spent the day driving down to the bottom of Kings Canyon, which is incredible, absolutely incredible. It's actually it's deeper than the Grand Canyon. It's not as wide, it's not nearly as wide, and it's not nearly as vast, and but it is deeper, and it's pretty spectacular. So that was a lot of fun.
That's good.
What about you?
Actually, yeah. Well, so on that topic, the Sequoia National Forest and Yosemite is on the bucket list for my husband and I. And we've been talking about doing a road trip from North Carolina out to Cali. So if we do that, we'll have to let you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. That's my backyard. So that's,
Good.
Yeah. I mean, I could be basically inside Yosemite in less than an hour from here, about an hour. Not all the way down into the valley, but just into the park. Yeah,
that's great. Well, we spent some time Enoing in our backyard. We have hammocks that we absolutely love, and listen to some limbs fall and some neighboring trees. And
what was the weather like?
Yeah, the weather was okay. So half the weekend was great, half the weekend not so much. So the day that it just deluged here for, 4 or 5 hours, part of that time we were out with some friends, and then we went to REI and got back and found a nice roof leak that we were not expecting. So
not what you want to find in a deluge.
Not what we wanted to find. Yeah. So it's been an adventurous weekend, but we're good.
Yeah.
We're good. Yeah. It's great. So I know we're here for another discussion around psychological safety. And so where are we today in the lineup?
Yeah. So today we are talking about strategic surges. So this is now the 6th week that we've have been talking about this idea of hardcore psychological safety. And a couple of those weeks we really didn't get to it. It was on the agenda, and then the other topics ended up going for so long. This week we're focusing the entire show on the concept of strategic surges. And so some background on the idea of hardcore psychological safety and how strategic surges fits into that. So the idea came from reading the Elon Musk biography by Walter Isaacson. And there was a lot of very intriguing things, about Elon Musk and his leadership, and a lot was incredibly inspiring, and a lot of it I didn't agree with. But for the most part, I was very inspired by the book and by his sense of purpose and his ability to drive results and get things done, and in ways that we really have. I don't think I've seen somebody accomplish what he's accomplished in a long time. And so it just kind of got me thinking, how do we blend kind of the best of what we can learn from Elon Musk with what we know about business and psychological safety.
Mhm.
And part of the reason we landed on psychological safety with this is that was an idea according to the book that he really scoffed at, the idea of psychological safety. And my assumption is that he doesn't know what it means. Is that I think he thinks psychological safety means just being a safe place to work, and a safe, complacent, quiet, easy kind of a work environment.
Mhm.
And that's not what psychological safety is. Psychological safety is the ability to be on a team and know that you're valued and know that you can speak up and you can screw up and you can be yourself and know that nobody's going to work against you. And it's, there's a lot more to it than that, but in a lot of ways it's not about being soft, and I think
Right.
psychological safety is a very hard thing to do. And so,
Mhm. Mhm.
one of the things he says is that psychological safety, basically isn't the environment that he wants. He wants to build. He wants to build a hardcore environment. And so, I kind of was like, well, let's see, let's run an experiment and see if we can blend
Yeah.
the ideas of psychological safety and hardcore work.
Right. Right.
And
Right.
what happens if they come together? Will they work? Will they be
Yeah.
opposed? And the
Yeah.
more I started digging into it, the more I realized, okay, there's a synergy here, and
Yes. Yes.
there's something to this.
Yeah, because I could see having a desire for a very hardcore sports team, football team, but I would absolutely want there to be safety within the team to know
Hmm.
that when we get out on the field, regardless of what's going on, what's the competition throwing at us, or how we're even performing today, that I am still part of this team and I am safe in this team, but we're here to hit it hard.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
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 that's a good,
exactly. Yeah,
yeah, good
yeah,
way
and
to
so
pick it up.
um, yeah, so we'll put it in the chat.
Mhm.
I'll put a link in the chat so people can look at it. The Hardcore Psychological Safety Manifesto. It
Yeah.
is, and so I'll put it in here, and this will go to YouTube and Twitch, and then I'll put it on the LinkedIn as well, so people can look at it. So we won't spend a lot of time going over the things that we already did, but kind of a brief recap. So the very first principle is gravity of
Mhm.
purpose. And
Mhm.
it's the idea that the purpose within your organization and with your team should be so strong and so compelling and so easy to understand that it pulls everything to it, everything in the organization, all of your policies, all of your procedures, all of your behaviors, everything gets pulled towards based on the sense of purpose.
Mhm.
And then the second principle is uh,
Fierce protection of trust. Yes,
mhm,
I love that one. I love that one. Yes, because there's trust, and then there's a fierce protection of it that goes that level deeper. That just says not only do we want to establish trust, but we're actually going to protect it here,
right.
and we're going to fight for it. And fighting, I think, fighting for trust has as much to do with making sure that we're breaking down barriers as it has to do with just being in a room where we're all singing kumbaya, right?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Trust used here is synonymous with psychological safety.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
is. It's what Patrick Lencioni calls vulnerability based trust,
that's right. That's right.
which is psychological safety. It's the same
Mhm.
thing, and it's the foundation of a team.
Yeah,
Without trust, you can't have conflict,
it's true.
right? And
Yeah.
so you have to have it, yes, and the fierce protection of it. In a lot of ways,
Mhm.
that's not easy, right? Because
Mhm.
you don't want to. It's not easy to be kind of aggressively protecting something like
Mhm.
psychological safety, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
It's amoebus, right?
Yeah.
How do you really get a handle on it exactly? So
Yeah.
then, how do you fiercely protect it? So
Yeah. Because fiercely protecting it also carries the idea of it may mean that I'm calling you out.
exactly,
Right?
yes,
But if I've established that we're safe, then calling you out is not a threat as much as it is this is why we exist, and we know that this is what we are measuring ourselves by. And so when you're out of alignment from that, we want to call you back into it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
still
exactly. And
without that fear of recourse that's going to be damaging to me as
right.
a person.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's so much there that we could talk about, like just thinking about like leadership in that sense, like
Mm,
to me, it's hardcore to, metaphorically put your arms around somebody and say, that's not how we behave.
right,
Right.
right.
And it's soft to
Yeah,
ignore it to the point where you blow up and then just fire them.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's, and that to me is a big difference, that it's much harder
Mm,
to fiercely protect trust.
mm-hmm,
You know,
mm-hmm. Agreed,
yeah.
agreed.
And
Yeah. What's number three?
the third principle is my favorite so far because there's a lot already kind of wrapped up into it, and it is consistent compass checks.
Yes.
And really, the idea is to not only prevent mission drift, right? So that we're always
Mm-hmm,
making sure we're aligned with our purpose,
mm-hmm,
so that we don't even go 3 months assuming that we're still aligned, right? We regularly make sure that we are.
mm-hmm,
Um, but into that process, was able to really blend um, kind of two different concepts, well-known models together, and that's the theory of constraints,
yeah.
the 5-step process of elevating and removing a constraint, and
Mm-hmm,
then the Elon Musk, he's still working, off of his inspiration, is he came up with what he calls the algorithm, which is an algorithm
mm-hmm,
to basically remove bureaucracy, right? But it's a
mm-hmm,
process of removing, of questioning what's there, removing what's not necessary, uh,
mm-hmm,
automating and streamlining in the proper
mm-hmm,
order. So it was really cool because that really found a way to blend those two. So again, I'm not going to spend the whole time
mm-hmm,
talking about those, but that was
mm-hmm,
very cool. So not only blending the theory of constraints with Elon Musk's algorithm, but also doing it in um, with hardcore psychological safety built into that process as well.
mm-hmm.
It's like a book within
Yep.
a book. That just number 3 is there's a lot
Mm-hmm.
to unpack there.
Mm-hmm. And then on to four, we're embracing discomfort for progress. Wow,
Mhm.
that one's powerful.
Yeah, yeah, and we
Yeah.
talked about that a couple weeks ago. That
Uh-huh.
was our subject
Uh-huh.
of conversation,
Yeah. Yep.
and
That's
yeah,
right.
and in a lot of ways, that's just a mindset, right? And a mindset for the
Mm.
individual and the team.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Mm-hmm.
if, as a team, if you're not willing to embrace discomfort,
Mm-hmm.
then at the clock's winding down
Yeah.
at that point.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you have
And
to
I
keep
think
pushing.
and I think that's that clarity around you're embracing the comfort for progress. Not you're not just
Hmm.
embracing comfort for the sake of discomfort,
Hmm.
and you're not just embracing it for the sake of someone's power struggle or building their kingdom.
Right.
You're embracing it because you know that there's progress that you're after. Like there is
Hmm.
something that you are reaching toward,
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
that's part of the inspiration to do the discomfort, right? Is
Hmm.
like I
Yeah.
know that if I swim across this lake, then
Right.
whatever is on the other side.
Right. Yeah.
But the discomfort of training for that swim, and knowing that I may have to, like, I don't know, do a bunch of hard things to get there,
Mhm.
but I know what's on the other side.
Yeah. Yeah. And in a lot of ways too, it's also a reaction to Elon Musk's statement about psychological safety, because
Mm,
in his mind, psychological safety meant avoidance of discomfort.
right.
And it's not that.
Mm,
It's the
mm-mm,
opposite of that. It really should be. I think psychological safety should be the opposite of avoidance of discomfort. I think it should be
mm-hmm,
the embrace of discomfort.
mm-hmm,
And like you said, like you pointed out, it has to be for progress, right? It's not
mm-hmm,
arbitrary.
mm-hmm.
You're not making things uncomfortable just for the sake of making it uncomfortable.
Mhm, mhm.
But don't expect change without discomfort.
That's right. That's right. Yep. And I think it was Thomas Edison who said that without conflict there can be no change.
Right.
Right? Like
Yeah.
there can't.
Right.
There can't.
Yeah.
There's just mediocrity.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, and all this lines up too with the 5 behaviors, or the 5 dysfunctions of a team as well. We talk about that.
Yes.
So if anybody's familiar with that, it's from also a book by Patrick Lencioni, where it demonstrates that the pyramid of a team, of a cohesive team, is the foundation is trust, vulnerability based trust. That I know that I can screw up and you're not going to hold it against me. That I could say, that we can be honest and know that there's not politics and people aren't actively or passively working against each other. Because without that, you can't have conflict, and that's kind of the point I was getting to with this. Is that the purpose of trust, one of the purposes of trust, is so that you can have conflict, so that you could say, I disagree. I think we should do it this way, and here's why. And that's uncomfortable.
But if the safety and the trust is not there, that foundation is not there, then disagreement is either taken as a threat or taken as a power move, or it's received as either of those, but it's also then potentially received as, oh, if I disagree with him, then I might not get the promotion that I was looking for, or I might not get the time off that I was asking for because blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And I think that's the total opposite of what Patrick Lencioni is trying to offer us in that book.
Exactly. Yeah. 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 In a lot of ways, it becomes like almost all those little conversations almost become like little political battles in a bigger war, and people are more interested and more concerned about, what they're saying or what they're getting out of a situation or how they're affecting somebody else, to gain the upper hand.
Yeah.
And that's when things really start getting toxic. When people start actively working against each other. And actually the more detrimental one is when people start passively working against each other.
Agreed.
Now,
Agreed. Yeah.
It actually has a slower to recognize, but a much more devastating effect.
Yeah. I would agree with that 100%.
Yeah. And so then moving
erosion.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Entropy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So moving to today's topic. So that's, and we actually did really good. We're actually moving into our main topic in the first 20 minutes, where usually it's like 40 minutes in. This is great.
Yay. Go team. That's good.
Yeah. So today we're talking about the 5th principle, which is strategic surges.
Yes.
And so a little bit of background. So I'm going to let you kind of share a lot of what you've learned and implemented with this.
Sure.
I'm really excited about that. And before we do, just a little setup for it. So again, a lot of this came from the idea of hardcore psychological safety, came from the Elon Musk biography by Walter Isaacson. And one of the things that Elon Musk did throughout his career numerous times is implementing surges. And these surges often happened at very critical times in the different companies' existence. So there was a critical surge at Tesla with the batteries, the manufacturing and putting the batteries together. There was another surge with Tesla in the manufacturing, because they recognized that if they weren't able to produce like 5,000 Teslas a month, that the company would fold. Wow. And they were only producing like 1,000, and they were at max capacity, and nobody believed it was possible. And so through a surge, he was able to accomplish that. And that's what kind of broke the barrier for them being successful and now being really the first American car company to succeed since, in over like 100 years, right? Like Ford, GMC. I mean, that's such an entrenched industry that that it was the surge that required him to break through. And one of the things we'll talk about with this too is that he lived and breathed this too. So it's not like he was saying, okay, I'm going to demand hardship and sacrifice from everybody, and I'm not going to also do that. He was in this process, sleeping under his desk, working, barely sleeping, probably working the hardest and throughout these surges. One caveat though is that I disagree with him on, and this is, we'll pass it to you in a second, Denise, but it was the idea of so many of his surges were arbitrary, not well communicated. Not a lot of people understood necessarily why. they were going. So that was one of the areas that for me it's important that they are strategic surges. They have to align with the purpose. They have to come from a psychological safe team. And it has to be an environment where people are willing to sacrifice to accomplish what would otherwise be either impossible or would you know, not like I guess breaking down a barrier that exists through a surge.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. And so I think that a lot of it would go back to he saw what was going on. If we're going to use his business example, he saw what was going on and was aware enough to know that if we don't figure this out, then we're going to fold, right?
Yes.
And so there's
most of the time, not all the time. Sometimes they were arbitrary. Yeah. But yes.
Yeah. Yes, that's right. And so like with so many things, in order to get over to a new level, either of production or of functionality or of impact, it takes something like a strategic surge, but it has to be grounded in a solid why, right? Otherwise, what you've got, like you said, is arbitrary. And so if you've got this clear and compelling vision, thank you for that, then you know your why. And that's going to be what gives you that extra level of, or extra measure of energy and push to say, okay, it is worth continuing with this fight, or continuing on with the level of intensity that we've said that we need to establish for this. So yeah, but I think then as soon as you've recognized that and you've created your why, or you've established your why, and then you've decided that I've got to do some type of strategic surge, then you're going to have to create those uncomfortable goals, right? You're going to have to say, okay, it may mean, I don't think that everybody wants to sleep under their desk, but it may mean that. It also may mean, okay, I know then that I have to pick up the phone for the next 20 days and make at least 5 phone calls, or I have to go to these networking events and I have to make the choice to do all these things. So then from there, I think that the next level would mean we're taking massive action. We're like, okay, I know what I need to do. I know why I need to do it. I know when I need to do it. And now I need to actually take this massive action. And that's like where the rubber meets the road, right? It's like, okay, now I'm actually going to do it. And I love this too. We're going to have to maintain focus and determination. Because if I understand my why, and I've decided that I've done these uncomfortable stretch goals, then yes, my focus and determination are going to follow.
And so much of it is because oftentimes the surge, and this is, we can segue into the 6 working geniuses here, a little bit with this too, but a lot of it is because there's something that is uncomfortable or not easy for me, or something I don't want to do. Yeah. And I need to make a concerted effort to cross that finish line.
That's right.
And an example of that, we've used this a few times, but we have a friend, Dale, who started something he calls Tenacity Tuesday.
Yes.
Right. Where the crossing the T's, dotting the I's work, and all of the just kind of the daily task driven stuff he saves for Tuesdays. That is a strategic surge.
Yes.
Right.
Because in his working genius, that is not the thing that he most finds a lot of fulfillment in doing, but he knows that it's necessary for the work that he wants to do, because this is the way that he gets to serve his clients, is by making sure that those things get done. And so, yes, he reserves them for Tuesday. And I think that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. So I think it's a bit of a different example than what Elon Musk is doing, right?
Sure.
In a lot of ways of what we're talking about, but it is an example of a strategic surge. I know that I have to operate in an area that is going to drain my energy.
Yes.
And instead of trying to do that a little bit every day or trying to fit it in, that I'm going to dedicate a time to drive that task to completion.
Sure, sure. And I'm actually going to contain it because he contains it in a set amount of time. Like I know that at this time on Tuesdays, I start this, and at this time on Tuesdays, I end that. So he's created this like built-in hack for himself to say, this is when I get the least desirable work done, but I can do it and I can finish on time because I've given myself some parameters.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. See, and if it was up to me, it would always be tenacity tomorrow.
Right. Tenacity tomorrow. That is great. That is great. Yeah. Yeah. Well, so I think I would love your thoughts on this. Within the strategic surge, so part of what you're doing is you've made these uncomfortable stretch goals and you're now taking massive action and you understand why you're doing this and you're actually doing the thing. So I'd love your thoughts around doing the work that you've said that you're going to do and viewing it as I'm collecting data. Obviously, you're doing this for a purpose because you do want an end result, but sometimes it takes doing the work over and over and over again before you actually start to see success.
Right.
So one of my mentors shared that when she puts in a big new goal that she's after, she just decides that for the first 30 days that she's doing it, she's just collecting data. So she may not hit the goal every day or every week, but she realizes what she's doing is she's learning the process. She's taking the massive action so that she can eventually get to where she gets the results that she wants. So just riff on that for a minute and tell me your thoughts.
Yeah. Well, there's a few. I guess I have to like soak it in for a second.
Yeah.
Yeah. So collecting data. So in a lot of ways, in my mind, I guess I have questions. So is that like, because she wants to know, she has an idea of where the end will be and wants to see how she's progressing towards that? Or is
Yes.
it more of a collecting data in the sense of learning and training and like muscle memory in a sense, like mental muscle memory of repeated action? And
Sure. So a little bit of both, but more the former than the latter. It's saying that I'm going to do these things, and I know that because I'm not good at it yet, in the beginning, I'm actually doing it to do it, right? And so I'm not going to measure myself against the results in the beginning. I'm going to measure myself against consistency.
yeah.
I measure myself against doing what I said I was going to do. And then I'm going to hold judgment on the results until I know that I've actually started mastering it, to your other point.
Yeah.
And so in that meantime, in that in-between time, where what I'm doing is taking massive action toward the work that I said that I was going to do, when I don't meet the goal immediately, I'm not going to make it that it was the wrong goal. What I'm saying is I'm actually getting closer to meeting the goal.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And so then I think what that
have you read Atomic Habits?
I have read half of it. I need to finish it, but oh my goodness. Yeah. I was actually going to refer to it. It's so good.
Yeah.
It's so good.
And a lot of what you said remind me of that. One of the first principles, and this applies to kind of what we're talking about too, is one of the first things you do is you start with your identity, right? And so if you're needing to, and this is something I've been losing some weight this year, and a lot of it is similar to this, kind of applying the principles. So as an example, I'm not exactly doing this. So I'll give his examples, not mine. But if you want to lose weight, identify as somebody who eats healthy, right? Say, I am somebody who eats healthy.
Yeah.
Right. I'm somebody who eats as if they were fit. Right. And what that does is it helps drive our mental shortcuts, right? Which is by definition what a habit is.
Yes.
It's our mind shortcutting a decision or an action, right? So if we try to use willpower to stop ourselves every time we want to grab
Yeah.
grab the extra bite or do the thing that's
Right.
unhealthy, we will fail eventually, because willpower
Yes.
is a limited resource. You can't
That's
use
right.
willpower all
That's right.
day. You
No.
will run out. So you don't start with willpower. You start with, okay, I am somebody who, by you kind
Mhm.
of repeatedly telling yourself, I am somebody who eats healthy, right?
Mhm.
And so then the way you approach food is not, okay, I need to not take the extra bite. It's, I'm somebody
Right.
who eats healthy.
Right. And
Um,
so would a healthy person eat this?
right. Exactly. Yeah. And
Yes.
so in a lot of
Yes.
ways, kind of what you're
And
saying about your kind of your friend's example, and the tie-in with that is,
mhm.
it becomes, I'm somebody who does this activity. I am
Right.
somebody who
Right.
does this. And you start to develop those muscles and
Those
that.
muscles. Yeah.
Mhm. And then you're not
Yes.
using willpower. So then when the time comes and then you've actually attained the skill,
Mhm.
or you've accomplished the thing that you're trying to accomplish, then,
Right.
and like you said, it's not, the victory is in taking the steps. Is
Yes.
in the
Yes.
progress, not in measuring
Yes.
yourself compared to others,
Yes.
especially. One of my
That's
favorite
right.
quotes
Using
is
okay.
from Jordan Peterson. He says,
Mm.
um, like, and I think it was from him, and I'm going to butcher the quote a little bit, but that, like, happiness is, it's, what is it? Success is not comparing yourself to others. It's comparing yourself to where you were yesterday.
Mm. Oh yeah, that's so good. That's so good.
Right.
And to your
I think that was,
example,
and maybe it was even from Atomic Habits. I don't remember, but
maybe James Clear. Oh, so using your example of, I've decided that I'm the type of person who eats healthy, right? By choosing that thought, then what you're also doing is you're telling your brain to go to work to actually make that thought come true,
right.
right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
Not just affirmation, but you're actually saying that I am now training my brain along with my appetite, right?
Mhm.
I'm the type of person that eats healthy. So I'm telling my brain that, but I'm also telling my body that.
Yeah.
And then if in that first 5 days, you've made more healthy choices than not, at the end of those 5 days, the fact that you're not at your ideal weight doesn't mean that you set the wrong goal. It just
Right.
means that you are working toward that, right? So that's
Exactly.
where I think my mentor was talking about, like, creating these opportunities to take massive action, so that in the beginning, what you're doing is actually collecting data. You're watching yourself actually do the thing that's going to
Mhm.
get you where you want to go.
Yeah. I love
So,
that.
and I think that ties right into why you would do a strategic surge, because
Right.
so often we are doing a strategic surge so that we can get a result that we're after, but we can't demand that it's going to happen tomorrow.
Right.
And so,
Right.
what do we do in the meantime if the work today didn't get us there? Well, what if we just looked at it as, oh, I'm learning so much about the goal that I want to accomplish.
Yeah.
And then tomorrow I will do the same,
Right.
rinse and
Yeah.
repeat.
Yeah.
Instead of, I didn't get there today. So spending all of my emotional and mental energy reevaluating the goal actually takes me back instead
Right.
of keeping me going forward.
Right. Yeah. It becomes almost imprisoning
Yeah,
in that
it
sense.
does. It
Yeah.
does. I love James Clear with Atomic Habits. I also love Craig Rochelle. If you've not read this one, this is a good one. The Power to Change just talks
Yeah.
about, like, how that you can make those decisions, but you also have to boss your mind around.
Right.
And the good thing is, as thinking people beings, we get to do that.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So how does that land with being part of a working genius cohort and the
Hmm.
psychological safety and all of that? Like, help us pull some of that together.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they're all pieces of the same thing, right? I think
Mm.
so. The idea of a strategic surge is only possible in a team environment that has trust, right? I think that's the
Yes.
only opportunity for it to be a
Mhm.
truly beneficial thing.
Mhm.
And that could be, we were talking about it before the show. There's also an interesting discussion of, um, you know, I am a huge believer and proponent of good leadership and clear, effective communication and caring for those in your charge and taking care of those as a leader. I think that's your responsibility. It's also impossible to say that even the arbitrary surges sometimes, and even the ones that may have had a negative impact on the people that had to do them under Elon Musk. It's impossible to say that that good didn't come out of those as well.
Right.
And so that's not the direction I would go, but I think it's important to say that too. That is part of the discussion as well. There becomes a moral, ethical, kind of tightrope to navigate as a leader faced with challenges that could negatively impact other people as well. So,
Sure.
Is it good to get everybody mad at you for a month and quit and do all of that if it saves their jobs?
Right.
You know,
Or is there middle ground, right? Is there middle ground on that? And I think to that as well, it just speaks to the importance of strong leadership, but also the ability either of the leader or to have someone close to the leader who has the gift, the genius of galvanizing. Because that galvanizing that's the person who comes and says, these are the things that we were doing, and we now know that this is what we need to be doing. And so that person might look like the person who walks through the office. Patrick Lencioni uses the example of one of the guys walking through the office, closing everybody's laptop, like bam, 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 and saying, okay, now this is what we're doing. And so I think he probably has some degree of trust, or you built with those people. Otherwise, if you don't have trust and you don't have rapport with people, you go and shut their laptops and they're going to be like, okay, dude, right? What's up with that?
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, it goes back to strong leadership, but strong with that tension of what is for the good of the organization here, and how do I create that and maintain it, and if necessary, how do I actually bring someone else alongside me to be the deliverer of some of this information if I'm not the best one to do that.
Yeah, and that's a great point, because that's something that like as being in, so galvanizing is my frustration. Is one of my frustrations, galvanizing and tenacity. And so that's such a good point too, of the idea of teamwork, and in another way that Six Working Geniuses works with strategic surges, right? Or even discomfort, or things that are difficult decisions. Let's just say that, that we sometimes have to make. So having somebody who can communicate for you and help people understand exactly what's happening.
And that strong leader is going to be strong enough, but also secure enough to say, oh yeah, I am an amazing, like for example, for you with wonder and invention, you've got this amazing ability to come up with ideas and think through vision casting, but you may need someone with discernment or galvanizing. Like when you had Kyle on the show, like he was an amazing galvanizer, to be able to then take it from here and actually execute. So that safety as a leader, or security as a leader, of knowing that it is safe to also depend on my people for some of these pieces. Love it. Love it.
Yeah. I mean, just that concept too of psychological safety, the idea of your weaknesses can become a superpower if you are transparent about it and allow others to come in and be strong where you're weak. Right.
That's right.
One of the great things I learned about Six Working Geniuses, I learned from the Six Working Geniuses, is to not focus energy on our weaknesses.
Right. Exactly.
Right? So often we think, okay, I'm weak in this area. I want to be great. So I need to be good at everything. And so I need to just focus on my weaknesses. Well, no, you're going to burn yourself out. You're going to get tired. And if it's a weakness, it doesn't matter how much energy, time you put into it. You may never get to the point where you're even competing with somebody who's just naturally gifted at it.
Sure, because it's never going to bring you joy. And I love some John Maxwell, And he just says, on average, someone who's good at something might be about a 7 or an 8 on a scale of 1 to 10.
Right.
So if you know that you have a strength in an area and you're a 7 or an 8 and you work really hard on it, you might increase it by a point or 2.
Right.
And he said, if you take that example and apply it to your weaknesses, say you're a 3 or a 4, and the best you can do if you work really hard is maybe increase it by 2 points.
Right.
Getting you up to a 6 is just barely average. And
Right.
who wants average?
Right.
Who wants
Exactly.
average?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nobody.
Yeah. So lean in on your strengths, and that's
right.
part of psychological
And then
safety. Say,
surround
I'm not
yourself.
good at that. I'm not good at galvanizing.
That's right. That's right.
There
And
has
then
to be a
surround
safe
yourself with
workplace.
people
A safe,
that do.
Yep. Exactly.
Took it from you.
I'm glad.
Yeah.
And,
Actually,
that's why it becomes a superpower.
Yes, that is why it becomes a superpower, because you have been vulnerable enough to say, this is where your weaknesses are. And then you've also been secure enough to say, and would you come carry the load in this area for me because I can't?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, how, so for you, Denise, as an example, you're in a situation where a WI is your boss, or somebody else who's, frustration is galvanizing and maybe, enablement.
Mm-hmm.
How would you feel if they came to you and said, hey, these are your geniuses. I need help here.
Yeah.
Can you help me?
Yes. Actually,
how would that feel?
happened. Oh my goodness. It would be so rewarding, right? And you would be like, yes.
Right.
I actually did a Working Genius workshop with a team. And one of the things that we realized was they had a client fulfillment team of 3 or 4 people, and all of them were enablement and tenacity, which those are the geniuses that love to actually take someone's vision and do the blocking and tackling to make it happen. And then they love to actually do the tenacity work of getting it over the finish line and dot all the I's and cross all the T's. And so I just said to them, I can imagine that you love it when people come to you and say, hey, can you help me with this? And they were like, yes, we do love that. So then I looked at the other people in the room who were more on the side of wonder, discernment, invention, and just said, do you ever feel bad when you go to your enablement and tenacity people and say, can you help me with something? And they're like, well, sometimes we do. And I was like, well, then here's where we level the playing field on that. Like, this is where you realize that you always have permission to ask them. But then the flip side of that is those ETs do not want to go to a blank whiteboard. They do not want to go and try and come up with a vision for what we need to do next year. Yeah. So it is exactly what you said. It's leaning into what brings you joy and what allows you to work most often in the places where you have your strengths. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so good.
It is
good.
So
what advice would you give a team if they were missing a genius or two? Mm-hmm. And so, and I'm setting this up as part of the strategic surge discussion.
Sure.
Right. So if let's say a team that is struggling to accomplish something, and mm-hmm. they've identified that there's a couple of geniuses that are kind of just lacking from their group. Let's say it's galvanizing and tenacity. Let's use mine.
Okay.
What would you tell them? What would you suggest they do?
Yeah. So a couple of things I might recommend. First, I might recommend, okay, who on your team has those geniuses as their working competencies? That means that they could do it. It's not their major gifting, but they could do it. So that would be my first approach is who could you use from their competencies? If we set a certain amount of time, they're not going to have to do this forever. They don't sign up to do this until they die. That would be my first suggestion. And then my second suggestion would be, okay, once you absolutely know for certain that the genius work that needs to be done is galvanizing and tenacity, then I would suggest that they look at either hiring a consultant or hiring bringing on a 1099 or something, especially if we're talking about a small business. They can't afford right now to hire a new person for full time. So just go and contract with someone that is gifted in those areas to come and do that work. instead of going and finding a person who can paint for us, what we need is a person who is a galvanizer and tenacity who also can paint.
Right.
Right. I think it's often, especially with small businesses, we fall into this trap of thinking, well, I just need someone to come do this job. We need them to do a job, but we need them to do it with a certain giftedness. Because if you bring in someone who's a painter who doesn't also have galvanizing and tenacity as their genius, then the tasks that you're already suffering from no one doing are still not going to get done.
Right.
Does that help?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think leveraging contract support is a great way for a small to medium-sized business to also they get that work done, but then they also realize, oh, we absolutely, once we are ready to hire someone, we know now exactly what they need to be.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. I love the idea of like fractional employees and using 1099 and that sort of thing to help with that.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. And really kind of where I was going with it too is it was, with the idea of strategic surges, sometimes with our geniuses, just because my frustrations are galvanizing and tenacity doesn't mean that I can avoid it forever.
Right.
It doesn't mean that I don't have to do it from time to time.
You're right.
So there are times where I will need a surge to accomplish it, because I know if I, and so for for tenacity, it was a big one, and that was one of the things I think we had talked about a few weeks ago, because I'd been working on something that it was very much in tenacity work, and in a lot of ways galvanizing too, because it was something I didn't really enjoy doing, and so I had to galvanize myself,
right,
to have tenacity. And I set aside 2 weeks to accomplish the task, and it was I was probably working 18 to 22 hours a day on it.
Sleeping under your desk.
Largely, yeah. Well, and part of it was because I was using AI, and they like throttle how many messages you can send. And so whenever I'd run out of messages, I would go like take like a little nap and then come back when the messages were refreshed, and just keep working. And I was up at 1 a.m, because sometimes they'd refresh at 1, so I'd be up at 1. So sometimes they'd refresh at 3 a.m. and I'd be up at 3, just to whenever they were refreshed, I was back on it.
Yes.
But I was able to accomplish something that I would have never been able to accomplish. And if I had tried to accomplish it by doing a little bit at a time, right, and not a surge, then I would have never done it. I would have burnt myself out, got tired, frustrated, not made progress with it.
Yes.
And so as individuals and small teams, that's a great way, I think, that we can overcome some of our frustrations.
Yeah. And I think that another quote from one of my mentors is, we get to choose your hard, right? Because it's going to be hard either way. It's going to be hard to do it and push yourself in areas where you're not naturally gifted, but you need to do this. Or it's going to be hard because you're going to not like the consequence of not actually doing it. Right. So either way, there's going to be hard. You just get to choose your hard.
Right.
You just get to choose your hard.
Yeah.
And as people who want to continue growing and who have a desire to make an impact on our world, like we have to go first, right? The leader goes first. We get to lead ourselves and say, okay, I will step into the muck and the mire and I will figure out how to do this. Oh, I love that. Bringing your passion and enthusiasm to your work. Yeah.
It seemed to fit with what you.
It does. Totally. Because if I can't bring that enthusiasm and passion, then I would need to go back and question my why.
Right. Right. Yeah. And everybody needs to know what you do matters. Even if it doesn't feel like it, even if the company you work for hasn't clearly communicated their purpose, even if the team you're working for hasn't clearly communicated their purpose, what you do matters. Business matters. One of the things that I talk about that I get pretty passionate about is the idea of democratizing business excellence. And what I mean by that is making best the best information, best practices, and best services available to small businesses. That it's available to everyone, because small businesses matter.
That's right.
I think that's the lifeblood. That's what keeps everything in check. I think if small businesses start falling to the wayside, then everything gets shifted towards government and mega corporations. And I don't trust either.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So in a lot of ways, like, just working for a small business, especially, is significant. It has purpose. It keeps you employed. It keeps other people employed. It keeps the business running. It keeps there are so many other things that you may not even understand that are so important about the work that you're doing. So
well, and just the importance too of reminding myself that I innately have purpose, regardless of whether others view that or not, or they appreciate it or not. I am innately created with purpose, for purpose, on purpose.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's great.
Yeah.
It's great. So what would you say is, tell me I love when you talk about democratizing, how do you say it again?
Democratizing business excellence.
Yes, I love when you say that. So when we talk about, like, knowing that innately we each have purpose, you've used your purpose to create this 10x live stream, right? So tell us why you did that, and tell us what's the why behind it, that keeps you going.
Yeah. I mean, it might be boring. Because for me, with galvanizing and tenacity being my frustrations, I'm probably one of the hardest people for me to motivate. In a lot of ways, that's what this is. In a lot of ways, this is what it started off as, was a way to get some ideas out there, to have something every week that forced me to keep moving forward. And it's met that purpose. I will say too, just having started the stream and the amount of work that I've done as a result, has it's served its purpose for that. The idea of 10x live and democratizing business excellence and how those fit in. So the hope with this show is that if you watched for 10 minutes, that you would get 10 times that value, right? So even if you're not paying anything, you're investing your time, and that there would be enough content or enough feel good, or enough, just enough of meat, there that it would save you 10 times that in the next week. It's kind of the idea is that this would be packed with that sort of stuff. That's a dream, and I still have a long way it goes to make it that packed and that impactful and to get there. But that's kind of the idea too with 10x Live. And
this is you practicing, isn't it? I mean, what we were talking about earlier, you're doing a strategic surge, and this is you practicing to get there. And we're not making any of this mean that it's not the right goal. What we're making it, well, you get to choose, right? But you can just make it mean that this is how I'm going to get there.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And the idea of democratizing business excellence is, I mentioned the small businesses, mega corporations, and governments, right? And the way I see the future is those are the three major forces of rule in a lot of ways for the world. Is either going to be tied up in governments, mega corporations, or small businesses. And the stat I always use is that in the United States, 58% of the people employed in the United States are employed at a small business.
Yes.
When it comes to employment, small business has the lion's share.
That's right.
But only 39% of value created by business is created by small business.
That's right.
And so there's a gap there.
Yes.
And so not only is there a gap that we can help fill, but it's a sector that needs support as well, that can be supported. And democratizing business excellence is really about information. right?
Mhm.
With AI and with technology and the exponential growth of technology and the availability of information, uh, information has already been democratized. And so the
Mm.
best
Mhm.
information is part of that as well, right? So now it's taking the technology and using it to create services and resources that allow people to do things very cheaply that
Mhm.
would have been out of their price range
Mhm.
previously. And so that's the idea. That's democratizing business excellence, is putting making resources available
Mhm.
for small businesses
Mhm.
to save the world in a lot of ways, right? To help maintain that
Mhm.
balance.
Mhm. Putting it on the lower shelf so everybody can get to it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah. That's a
That's
great way of
great.
putting it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I know that there are so many businesses that are going to benefit from the work that you're doing. And I just think it's great to watch someone like you take a dream and a passion for helping small businesses and actually getting behind it and doing something about it. So
Well, thank you.
I
Yeah.
think it's a good thing.
Yeah.
I think it's
And
a
you're
good
out
thing.
there in the trenches every day too. So yeah.
Yeah, grateful,
Yeah.
grateful. I tell you, I have so much passion and love for small and medium-sized businesses because they are out in the trenches and they're making a difference. And a lot of times it seems unseen, but
Hmm.
there is so much strength there.
Yeah.
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 Mhm.
Awesome.
Good. So what's up for next week
Well, so next week we
or
are going
next
to,
time we're together?
yeah, yeah. Well, the next topic in hardcore psychological safety is, I think it's inclusive excellence.
I think you're right.
And the idea is, you know, DEI efforts
Hmm.
are very beneficial for companies. It is incredibly beneficial to have diversity, equity, and inclusion
Hmm.
within organizations. However, it tends to backfire if it's forced. So it
Sure.
has to be
Hmm.
the genuine want and desire of the leader and the organization, and it creates business excellence. And if it's done because you have to, and that's part of it, is I disagree with governments requiring it, enforcing it, because
Hmm.
then I think that I don't think it's actually effective. I don't think
Right.
that makes it effective for
Right.
organizations. So I think it's a time for
Mhm.
organizations and small businesses to step up and say, hey, you know what? This is
Mhm.
powerful and let's get on board.
Yeah, yeah.
It's right
Let's get on
too.
board. Yeah, let's get on board with the proper understanding of how it can
Mhm.
help.
Right.
Yes, I think that's going to be helpful. It's
Yeah,
good.
absolutely.
It's
Yeah.
good.
Well, any last thoughts or takeaways? So I would always because Kyle was the galvanizer, I always asked him to finish things off, and you're a galvanizer too. So
Yeah.
you wanna send us off
Oh my goodness.
with some
Well,
encouragement
we've
and
we've talked about three good books today. We've talked about
Mhm.
James Clear's Atomic Habits, and then we've talked about I forgot who the author was of the book that you talked about with
Yeah, Walter Isaacson. Yeah,
Walter Isaacson, right?
the Elon Musk
And then
biography.
yes. And then Craig Groeschel's The Power to Change. So, highly recommend those. And then I would just say, too, like, look for ways that you can create a strategic surge for yourself, whether it's for yourself personally in some habits or goals that you want to improve on or change, or look for ways that you can do that within your organization. And at the core of it, it's just first go back to do you have trust? And
Mhm.
if you don't, then read a book by
Right.
Patrick Lencioni
Yep.
on the five dysfunctions of a team. And then knowing that you've got trust. I think side by side, you've got to have trust, and then you've also got to know your why.
Mhm.
Hopefully, your why is already established, and then you've got to develop that trust within your team. And then I would just say, decide what you need to do, and then go for it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and if you're not sure where your gifts are, then there's some amazing work around Working Genius by Patrick Lencioni, and I know Jay is a facilitator, and then we've got
Mhm.
a group of us that we could recommend you to that are facilitators as well. And yeah,
Yeah.
go out there and make a difference for the world of business. I think that's a great one.
Absolutely.
Yep. That's a great
Awesome.
one.
Well,
Yay.
thank you,
Thanks.
Denise, for joining
Yeah.
us. And
You're
yeah, it's great. You always say like, I don't know. I feel like you're doing me a huge favor by being on. It's so nice to have you here. So
Oh my goodness. Well, it's kind of you, and I enjoy it. As a galvanizer, I love this kind of stuff.
awesome. Yeah. Awesome.
Great. Jay, you're so good to work with. I appreciate it. And I hope you have a great rest of the day.
You too. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Imagination's canvas, colors yet unseen. You paint with thoughts so vivid, a world of might have been. Challenges ignite you, spark a flame so bright. Your mind a constellation, guiding through the night. Adapting like a chameleon, ideas in constant flow. Your warmth invites collaboration, helping others grow.